Hello and welcome to Books Corner. You're on StratNews Global. I'm Nitin Gokhale, and with me today is former bureaucrat and now author and thinker Shakti Sinha, who has written his first book, first individual book, of course. He has edited several others, and I would say a very significant book, Vajpayee, The Years That Changed India. Almost 20 years after Mr. Sinha worked with Prime Minister Vajpayee, he has come up with this book, which consists of memories and, of course, an observation about that time, politics of it, the seminal events that happened during that time, the nuclear test, the Lahore bus yatra, Kargil conflict. So, all in all, a landmark book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And a fascinating insider's account, if I can say that, although I'm sure you've held back many secrets that you know or you knew at that point in time.
I enjoyed writing the book. Of course, I couldn't write everything because many things are said in complete confidence, which may not have a larger bearing, and therefore one should not. One can use it, but I felt not necessarily. My whole point of writing this book was basically to set the record straight. Two things bothered me. One was that people did not realize how difficult circumstances there were when Mr. Vajpayee formed the government in 98 and 99 when he continued. How literally this government was a government on daily wages. He was surviving day to day. It was a fragile situation. Government itself was not a cohesive government. To be fair, it was not a cohesive government. People spoke in different voices, and it seemed chaotic at times. The other and most significant was the romantic view of that period and Mr. Vajpayee in particular that I read in the media today. People quote them and speak about it. Ajat Shatru, we all loved him.
And he was a great unifier.
He was a great unifier, which he was. Yeah. But the fact is, at that moment of time, nobody portrayed him as a great unifier. He was portrayed exactly the opposite. He was attacked on the smallest of issues, specifically on non-issues.
Right.
Issues were made where nothing existed actually on the ground. And that it was a very uncomfortable situation to be in. And yet today we look back, oh, what a wonderful years those were. So I thought, as a student of history, I thought, let me make my little contribution. Since I was an observer, I was not a participant in that sense, I was just an observer, but a close enough observer to put the record.
Indeed, you were a close enough observer. You were in the Prime Minister's office. You worked very closely with him. And it comes out very clearly in the book. I particularly found 2-3 episodes during that time. Of course, the entire book is fascinating. But what stood out was the nuclear test, the decision to go nuclear, and the after event, shenanigans, if you may call it, or international ramifications, and the kind of pressure India was put under. I think you brought that out very well. Yeah. So, just tell us, what were those days or those months that the PMO went through really?
Oh, they were horrible. But before that, because you mentioned the test itself,
yes,
but it surprised the world. It surprised a lot of people in India. Well, it should not have surprised them. Had they read Mr. Vajpayee, had he seen his constant references for India to go nuclear since the 60s.
Right.
Since the 60s, Correct. Once China has gone nuclear, once the NPT is in place, once the CTBT is now in place, India's window has shrunk. And with the China-Pakistan nuclear and missile cooperation.
Exactly.
Why not? Nuclear
you brought that out, yeah.
So,
exactly.
In that sense, for Mr. Vajpayee not to test, I'm surprised that people didn't see it. They retained it in the national agenda of governance. They dropped all contentious issues but retained the option.
Right.
But yes, it was a difficult decision, and the days were very difficult because the world arose against India. Today's North Korea doesn't face that kind of language and action that India did.
Yes.
All concessional assistance were cut off, aid were cut off, delegations were sent home,
right.
The language used. Clinton talked about China being asked to sort out South Asia. So China being an empire between India and Pakistan.
Exactly.
And we told him it's not Pakistan focused. Neither our missiles nor our nuclear is Pakistan focused.
Exactly.
But Australia, Japan is understandable. Japan is the only country whose
Pacifist.
reaction was understandable, having suffered Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yes.
Though they were the largest bilateral donors for us. So
Right.
it was,
And they also withheld the aid that
yeah,
time.
they've completely.
Yeah.
Australia, $6 million. Tells Pakistan, if you don't test, we'll go double that amount. I mean, Pakistani army will send
Such a hypocrisy.
I mean, idiotic.
Yeah.
Canada, which has lived under American nuclear umbrella for decades,
Correct.
to get angry with us. We had no friends in the world.
Right.
So it was awful days, economically, politically. Domestically, he was attacked. Mr. Vajpayee was attacked domestically very, very strongly.
Yes.
Even the Congress party congratulated the Indian scientist who did the test.
And not the Prime Minister or the political decision.
Which did exactly,
Which was-
so it's so hypocritical of the situation. So it brought him peace for 1 week politically, domestically.
Right.
It didn't last longer than that.
That's
so
true.
it after test, you should have feeling of euphoria. There was none.
Was he euphoric? Because I think you said that he wasn't. He was very realistic.
He's not at all euphoric. Very balanced. Understood the implications of it. Understood that now that we are, well, India had nuclear since 1988.
But it was a declared nuclear
But
power.
now we are saying so. The world knows it. Our missile technology had gained a lot. It had been stopped by previous governments. He restarted the program.
Yes.
And he realized that now it's a different India.
Right.
And we have to behave. We've always behaved in a sober manner, frankly. But he really felt that now the onus on us to tell the world that we are not a North Korea. We are not a Pakistan.
Correct.
We are a serious country. This is required for our defense. That is it. We are not going to use it to threaten anybody.
Right.
So I think that element of realism, the sense of responsibility was very, very strong.
Yeah, it comes out very clearly in your book. In fact, that chapter is fascinating. And then it leads to another gamble they took, a very bold gamble, I would say, and a very risky gamble to go to Pakistan.
Yes. That's again part of the same thing. Having gone nuclear, and with the world, America downwards, seeing India's nuclear program as Pakistan focused, one, you had to take those extra steps to try to improve things with Pakistan, realizing that it is possibly not going to work out. It was not that there was euphoria, oh, now the Nawaz Sharif agreed and we are going. No, that wasn't ever there. Always the fear was there to be sabotaged.
Right.
We didn't realize how the sabotage would come about.
And
that is
where
right.
and how.
Where and how. But that element was there. You had to then show this. And secondly, by doing this, in a way, you were signaling dehyphenation.
Right.
That, we are different. We are not going to use nuclear to threaten a neighbor. We want to work with the neighbor. I'll take political risk to do that.
Correct.
Which much later Prime Minister Modi also did.
Yes.
People have criticized him also.
Yeah.
But you had to demonstrate to the world, India, Prime Ministers, that yes, I will take this risk to open up to Pakistan to improve the surroundings. And thirdly, in passing, can you become a great power if you're in trouble in your own neighborhood? The answer is no.
That was his...
And therefore, you had to,
right.
quote unquote, control your neighborhood, control the narrative of neighborhood at
That's
least.
right. And at least there should be no turmoil around you.
Yeah,
That was his...
so it was very, very important.
That's right. But I think one of the other facets that comes out from your book, again, some examples you've quoted, and one stands out, was the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Lakshman Kadrigamar's intemperate remark, if I can use that term, about the nuclear test and he rushing off to China.
Yes.
So tell us about Mr. Vajpayee himself. I mean, I was lucky once, I remember, in 1984, when BJP was down to 2 seats.
Yes.
He had come to Guwahati in early January 1985 when I was a young 1.5-year-old in the profession kid. But I met him in the circuit house and interviewed him. And that time, I still have the clipping with me. He says, I asked him that you're down to 2 seats. What is the future of your party? He says, in politics, nothing is impossible. That's the line I remember, it is there. So I think he had a steely resolve, even if he was amiable and very jovial as an external thing. So this Lakshman Kadrigamar example.
Exactly. To go to your specific point, Lakshman Kadrigamar, see, he went to Beijing and said that, talked about how South Asia has become insecure. Now, he didn't officially say that China should do something about it, but he mentioned insecurity in South Asia in Beijing.
Right.
Then he wanted to come to Delhi, and Vajpayee just asked me, in fact, "Kyun aa rahe hain?" So I, not being understanding a nuanced understanding of foreign policy, said, our DMK fellows have been speaking a lot in Tamil Nadu. He probably wants you to cool down the temperature.
Okay.
But obviously, Vajpayee understood it better.
Yes.
Vajpayee understood things much better. And Kadrigaman barely sat down. Then he said, if you had a problem, why didn't you come to us?
Correct.
I've never seen such controlled, cold anger. Not once did he raise his voice. Not once. And yet the atmosphere, the choice of words, the body language was enough to kill a person.
Correct.
So then I realized that Teddy Roosevelt's point about speak softly but carry a big stick kind of thing. You have to control your neighborhood.
Right.
And Kazim Quality explained that, in 65, 63,
62, I think
63, they had the after 62 war, and
that's right.
we had tried to bring India and China together. It was well beyond their league. It is not your pay grade at all. So,
exactly.
And he put it on very wrong. And yet he was very conscious that India and Sri Lanka must become close.
Correct.
And it upset him, therefore, that Kadir Gama's statements and his trip was coming in the way of improved relations with Sri Lanka.
That's right.
In addition to, of course, the fact that
other things were happening. But he also went to Bangladesh, and I think you went, obviously you went with him. And he was, in a way, a charmer, isn't it? Because he charmed Nawaz Sharif. I mean, it comes out very clearly that the SAARC summit in Colombo, and then he meets him again in New York. And then he goes to Lahore. So tell us about the Lahore bus yatra. How did it come out? What made Vajpayee do that, actually?
One, of course, you had to demonstrate it. See, talking with Pakistan is very important in terms of progressing. How to send a signal out to your people and to the world that we are serious about improving relations.
And he did this in Lucknow. The announcement.
The announcement.
Yeah, so I wanted to come to that, actually.
Okay, good one. So you had to demonstrate it. And we had discussed in New York the starting of the bus. See, Nawaz Sharif mentioned that he had come to Delhi with his wife in 82 Asian Games. Driven down.
Yes.
Possibly in a Toyota, he mentioned.
Right.
And then why don't we have improved? The bus will start. It was very casual. Okay, bus will start. And things started moving on the bus thing. Separately, I believe the back channel was also moving and thinking, yes, let us. Nawaz Sharif's fear was if I invite him publicly, officially, and you say no, I lose face.
Right.
Then
Yeah, in Pakistan, it's very difficult.
Very difficult. Yeah. So, and therefore, he mentioned it in the interview to Shekhar Gupta that, can you come? Which was, no, not, if Mr. Vajpayee comes, very good. Very indirectly he mentioned it. Yeah. And it came out in the papers here. And that particular day, Mr. Vajpayee was in Lucknow. And I must say, despite what Musharraf wrote, it was Vivek Kargil, Joint Secretary, who said, this is a good opportunity. We must say yes to this.
And contrary to his own inclinations.
MEA was against it.
Correct.
The Principal Secretary Brajesh Mishra was wanting to go with MEA, but Vivek said, Shakti, this is one chance. And he really stuck his neck. There's one chance, we must say yes to it immediately. Yeah. MEA was saying, if and when the official thing comes, we shall respond. He said, Yaar, isse marega. He was very clear.
Right.
So I rang up Mr. Vajpayee in Lucknow and mentioned it to him.
Right.
He said, haan, jayenge. End of the matter. That's simple.
Wow. Spur of the moment.
And immediately after that, he had a press conference on UP matters. President of UP, he mentioned, I'm soon going to Pakistan.
Wow.
So, it was very short.
And I think he made it appear as if it was a casual kind of a decision, but it wasn't really.
I don't think so. It could not have been casual. Because, as I said, I mean, the way he handled things, very nuanced understanding of the world, very nuanced understanding of the changing world. Because this was a period, America was the sole superpower.
Right.
Asia was in turmoil because it had nobody around. Sojourn had gone. Russia was with you, but Russia was not so important anymore.
Exactly.
Because Russia was again listening to America.
Sure.
In fact,
Yeltsin was there. Yeah.
Yeltsin's reaction on the test was as strong as any Western country. Stronger than France, as an example.
Correct.
Stronger than Britain. So you were, you knew that you had to navigate your view into the world. Right. And I think he saw this as an opportunity to tell the world, this is a new India. We are a nuclear power. We're a peaceful nation and we want stability. So
exactly.
I think that method.
So that new India strikes me as a very important turning point as the century was turning. We were coming into a new century. So some of the initiatives he took on developmental front, the national highways, sort of connecting the East-West National Highway, the whatever,
Golden Quadrilateral.
Golden Quadrilateral. So Mr. Vajpayee understood the new realities, the new century, and the needs of the new century. So his developmental programs, also infrastructure programs like building the Golden Quadrilateral, the roads, telecom policies, I think were path-breaking in a way. What is your memory about that?
Absolutely. See, the telecom was the most contentious because we had contracts with these companies, but the contracts were in very high license fees and the business wasn't growing. The companies were collapsing. So we realized we had to get out of it. We found a very innovative way, a very consultative way to get out of it, but obviously people are not happy. Again, attacked viciously. You sold the country. The East, I don't know how many times we sold the country, but we sold the country.
You would have made tons of money for India.
For selling again and again. So we still went ahead with it. Highways was a brilliant move to link India geographically, but also economically. For a truck, see, highways are not meant for cars, they're meant for trucks and buses.
Yes, exactly.
For a truck to move from Ludhiana to Bombay in 1.5 days instead of 1 week, to move from Kharagpur to Madras Port, Chennai Port, again in 2-3 days and not again in 10 days, a revolution. People didn't think of it. See, he realized that India has to break out economically. The reforms, the economic reforms of Narasimha Rao was a great thing. India did move.
Yes.
Then it became sluggish. That had to be changed completely. And the new India, because this was a young India, post-reforms, you could see technological development we didn't have in before. The world was also started to take India a little seriously, but not enough.
Yes.
After all, APEC was founded in 1994 without India in it, and if India is not in Asia.
Correct.
So you had to also show to the world that we are no more the hectoring India which lectures to the world.
Right.
We also tell America how to run the world. This is a different India. So economically, politically, strategically, those strands of thoughts came together to move ahead of these.
No, I think that's something that's not been either written about or commented upon. Mr. Vajpayee's legacy about infrastructure and about getting into the next gear as far as New India was concerned. So that was there.
And just to add a sentence, highways are fine. What about your villages? And therefore you bring in literally 25% of it dedicated to connecting the villages, Gram Sadak.
Absolutely.
So that the farmer, the agricultural labor, need not sell their produce or their labor in their own village where they get a bad rate, but can travel 10, 20 kilometers and get a better rate for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So telecom and roads actually have liberated the poor more than anybody else.
Exactly.
And this is something which people must...
And now we are seeing the fruits of it now, actually. That's rare. But he also had a very tough time in Kargil.
Yes.
Yeah, and Kargil again is close to me, my own upbringing in a sense of progress in my own career, because I reported Kargil, and it came as a shock to most people that this could happen after, especially the Bus Yatra, the Lahore Bus Yatra. So what were those days like?
Kargil was a shock, very big shock, you're right, and use the word also. It caught us literally by surprise. Initially, we didn't realize the seriousness of it. Initially, it was seen as some kind of aberration, some mujahideen moving here and there. Soon we realized it was not the mujahideen, it was the Pakistani army, though that took some time.
Yes.
But the logistics didn't suggest a mujahideen operation.
Right.
Extent, the depth, and the fact that you're surviving on hilltops at those heights.
Exactly.
Obviously, you need a very good supply chain. So it was a big shock. We were clearly not prepared for it because we did not expect that Pakistan, after the two countries are openly nuclear, would take such a risky adventure.
Exactly.
Tactically, it may have been brilliant, but strategically, it was absolutely a dead end. You know? And we had a tough time. Fortunately, the services rose to the occasion. Expectedly, let me put it. They rose to the occasion. They worked together fairly well. Could have been better, no doubt, in retrospect, but that is fine.
No, that's fine. But I think Mr. Vajpayee also was very subtle in his instructions about not crossing the line of control.
Yeah. And that people have not understood why. And I feel bad that they have not understood it. You had to demonstrate to the world, we are not a gunslinging Midwesterner with a bomb in our pocket. We are not a cowboy. We are facing a big challenge, we'll defend ourselves robustly. So on defense of India, we were clear, we will not accept any call for ceasefire.
Right.
Till the Pakistanis move across the LOC once again. But the moment you were seen as crossing the LOC, in other words, extending the battlefield elsewhere, then the world would have come down on you a ton of bricks.
Exactly.
We can't afford to see a full-scale war between two nuclear powers. And those days, India was not in a position really to resist the world. The whole world came to us. So you had to demonstrate to the world. And ultimately, it paid off because but for the American pressure on Pakistan, when Nawaz Sharif went to Blair House, Washington.
Yes, on 4th of July.
On 4th of July, the US president, first US president to have worked on 4th of July with a clear draft, either you back out or you face the world.
That's right.
That ended the war months before it prevented the war.
Exactly.
So actually saved lives. It saved a lot of lives.
Absolutely.
See, had we crossed, it would have saved lives. No. Had you crossed, you would not have saved more lives. And you would not possibly have got back your territory.
I'm glad you clarified that, because frankly, even as a young reporter that time, even I felt, because I was close to the action,
Obviously.
and one felt that, we are sacrificing soldiers for nothing, we're not allowed to cross. And as the military was also saying that because we are losing men.
Yeah.
But now, with little more years added.
And in any case, you could not have crossed the LOC where the Pakistanis were there.
Right.
Because they are between the LOC and you, right?
Absolutely.
So you could not have crossed the LOC.
Correct.
You crossed the LOC somewhere else.
Yes.
That would not have saved lives in the Kargil war.
Exactly.
So this is something.
So I think that subtlety is now I've understood, and I think the world needs to understand that also. I'm sure many people have understood that.
Many people have.
Many people have understood that. But that's what, so very fascinating. I mean, we can go on and on talking about the book and the anecdotes and the kind of policies that Mr. Vajpayee did. I think we were lucky to have him at a very crucial time as the Prime Minister. And also for you to be there and share your experience with him. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.